Okay, folks, we're back to part 2 now. So we're actually we're gonna start the third section, which is evaluating functions. When you see the word evaluate, what that means is basically find a value. Find a value. You're gonna plug in numbers and you're gonna work it out and come up with one value. Usually it's a number. So number 3 here, we're going to evaluate each expression using the following functions. Now we have two functions here. The first one is called f of x. When you see f of x or you see g of x, those are the same things as y equals. F parentheses x, the way we read that is f of x. That means y equals. So we have y equals 4x plus 2, and we have y equals negative 3x squared plus 2x minus 5. So what we're going to do here is we're going to plug in numbers for x into each function, and we're going to get out y values. So we're going to try to figure out the y values. All right, so part A is f of negative 5. So what that means is we're going to take the f function. Now instead of putting an x in, we're going to put the number negative 5. Now I don't need to rewrite this part, the f of x. What I'm going to copy down is 4x plus 2. But instead of that variable x, they're telling me to put in a number. And what the number is, the domain value is negative 5. So f of x equals 4 times x plus 2. F of negative 5 equals 4 times negative 5 plus 2. And now we work it out. So we're going to multiply negative 20, and then we add 2, and our answer is negative 18. So f of negative 5, when x equals negative 5, what we just found out was that y is equal to negative 18. That's it. That's all you're doing. It gets a little tricky with the symbols, f of x, g of x, but what they're telling you is here's the value, plug it in, and figure out what the y value is. Okay, negative 18. F of 0 means we're going to take the same function, f of x, which is 4 times x plus 2, but this time, what's the domain? What's the x value? It's 0. So we're going to do 4 times 0, which is 0, plus 2, and the answer is 2. When x is 0, y is equal to 2. G of negative 5, now notice the letter is different, so now we're going to do the g function. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this down, so it's negative 3 times x squared. I'm going to put parentheses because I'm going to put a number there instead of x, plus 2 times x minus 5. Okay, so this time, since we have two places where we have x's, I'm going to put negative 5 into two different places. Now when we work this out, order of operations, we have to do exponents first. So we're going to square negative 5. When you square a negative, that's a negative times a negative, so that's 25. And, okay, plus 2 times negative 5 minus 5. Now we're going to multiply. Negative 3 times 25 is negative 75. We're also going to multiply 2 times negative 5, which is negative 10, minus 5. And the last thing we'll do here, negative 75 plus negative 10 is negative 85, minus 5, and the answer is negative 90. Okay? So there's a little bit more work to do there. G of 0, we're going to take the g function. I'm going to write it out. It's negative 3x squared plus 2 times x minus 5. Now, instead of x, though, what's the number we're going to plug in? 0. So 0 goes into both places. Now, when you square 0, you get 0. And 0 times negative 3 is 0. So we have 0 plus 2 times 0 is 0 minus 5. And our answer is negative 5. That was a little bit nicer. G of 2, separate this out here. So again, the g function, I'm just going to copy it down. Negative 3x squared plus 2 times x minus 5. Instead of x, we're going to put in the number 2. First thing we'll do is we'll square the 2. So that's 4. Okay, negative 3 times 4 is negative 12. 2 times 2 is 4, minus 5. And if we add this up, we get, this is negative 8 minus 5, and we get negative 13. So all you're doing here is you're plugging numbers into the function for x, and you're working it out. Okay? Now f is a little different. It says f of question mark equals 30. Every time, I'm going to go back here to part A. This is an x value, negative 5. F of x, x is 0. G of x, x is negative 5. And what they're saying is, take the x, find the y. Now here, we don't know the x. What they're giving us is the y value. So if I take the f function, which is 4x plus 2, this time, they're telling me the outcome. They're telling me what the y value is going to be. I'm going to get 30 out of this. So what number do I plug in for x that gives me 30? So I'm going to solve an equation. I'm going to move the 2 by subtracting it to both sides. We get 4x equals 28. And then we'll divide by 4. And we get x is equal to 7. So what value do I plug in to f that's going to give me 30 as a range value? I'm going to plug in 7. F of 7 equals 30. Now g is the same thing, it's just asked differently. If the range value of f of x equals negative 8, range is the y value, what is the domain value? So they're telling us the y value is negative 8, figure out what x is. Now again, it's the f function, which was 4x plus 2. So what x value gives us an outcome of negative 8? So again, we're going to solve an equation. We'll go minus 2. We get 4x equals negative 10. And our last move is divide by 4. We get a decimal this time, and that's okay. X equals negative 2.5. So the thing that's tricky is they can ask these questions different ways. Are they asking me to find x, or are they asking me to find y? In the first 4 here, or first 5 parts, they give you the x value, you plug it in, find y value. But in part F and part G, they give you the y value, so we're going to work backwards and we're going to solve it to get x. And that is the end of part 2.